My name is Margaret. I am 62 years old and I worked as a nurse for over 3 decades. Every dollar I earned, I saved carefully because I never wanted to be a burden on anyone. I raised my son, Daniel, all by myself after his father passed away when he was just 8. I sacrificed everything for him: extra shifts, sleepless nights, and no vacations. I thought my son appreciated my efforts. I believed he would grow into a man with values, respect, and gratitude. But I was wrong. One day, Daniel proudly told me he had bought a new house. At first, I was happy. I thought he was finally making progress in life. But soon I discovered the truth. He had used my money. The savings I had trusted him with, thinking he would keep it safe, he had spent it all without my permission. And the worst part, he wasn't even planning for me to live there. Instead, he said the house was for his wife and her mother-in-law. When I asked him where I was supposed to go, he casually said, "You can manage, Mom. You're strong. Don't worry." My heart sank. The boy I had raised with love was now treating me like an outsider. I looked at him, and for the first time in my life, I felt betrayed by my own blood. I asked him directly, "You bought a house with my money, and your wife and mother-in-law are going to live in it?" Daniel looked uncomfortable, but didn't deny it. He tried to smile, saying, "Mom, don't make this a big deal. It's just money. You'll be fine." I felt anger rising inside me. I had spent my whole life building a future for him, and now he was throwing me away like I didn't matter? I didn't argue further. Instead, I calmly picked up my phone. My fingers trembled a little, but I knew exactly what I had to do. I dialed a number, and when the call connected, I put it on speaker. Daniel's face turned pale instantly. He knew who I was calling. On the other side of the line, a firm voice answered. "Hello, this is Attorney Williams speaking." Daniel froze. He knew exactly what this meant. I spoke calmly, making sure every word was clear. "Mr. Williams, I'd like to confirm the details of the property purchase that was made recently, the one under my son's name, but with my funds." The lawyer replied, "Yes, Mrs. Margaret, I remember our discussion. As per your instructions months ago, all transactions made from your savings account are recorded. Would you like me to explain them again, with your son present?" Daniel's eyes widened. His lips trembled, but he didn't say a word. I turned to him, my face stern, and motioned for the lawyer to continue. The attorney went on. "Your son withdrew $150,000 from your savings account. He used it to make the down payment for a house. However, since the money came from your account and we have written proof that it was not a gift, legally that property is considered a joint asset until you sign it away. At this point, he has no sole ownership." I glanced at Daniel. His face had gone pale, exactly as I expected. Then I asked the attorney, "And what happens if I decide to file a case of financial misuse against my son?" The attorney replied firmly, "Then your son could be held accountable for fraud and misuse of funds, especially since the money was meant for your retirement. The court will most likely side with you, and the property could be seized." At that moment, Daniel broke down. "Mom, please, don't do this. I just wanted to give my wife and her mother a comfortable place. I thought you'd understand." I stared at him coldly. "You thought I'd understand? You used the money I worked my entire life for, and instead of thinking about me, your mother, you planned to push me aside?" His wife, who had been silently standing at the corner, stepped forward nervously. "Mrs. Margaret, please, don't be so harsh. It was Daniel's idea. I cut her off. "Enough. This is not just about the house. It's about respect. I gave my son everything, And this is how he repays me? Daniel buried his face in his hands. I could see guilt, but also fear. Fear of losing everything he had schemed for. I ended the call with the attorney, but not before saying, "Thank you, Mr. Williams. I will let you know if I wish to proceed with legal action." The silence in the room was heavy. I finally stood up and said, "Daniel, you have one chance to make this right. Either I get my money back or I move into that house myself. If you refuse, I will not hesitate to take this to court." Daniel looked up at me, tears in his eyes, realizing that for the first time in his life, his mother wasn't going to protect him. She was going to fight back.
Daniel sat there in silence, his face pale, his eyes red. He had always believed I would forgive him no matter what, because I was his mother. But this time, he could see I was dead serious. Finally, he whispered, "Mom, I'll fix it. Please don't go to court." I crossed my arms and said firmly, "Fix it? How?" Before Daniel could reply, his wife suddenly raised her voice. "Why should she live with us? This is our house now, Daniel. You promised me and my mother a place of our own. We can't just let her move in." I turned my eyes sharply toward her. "Your mother? And what about me? Am I supposed to live on the streets after giving up my entire life for my son?" She bit her lip but didn't answer. Then, to my shock, her mother, who had been sitting quietly in the kitchen, came forward. She looked at me with shame in her eyes. "Mrs. Margaret, I didn't know the money was yours. I thought Daniel earned it. If I had known, I never would have agreed to move in here." Her words cut through the room like a knife. Even her own mother sided with me. Daniel's wife shouted, "Mom, don't take her side!" But her mother shook her head. "No, enough. I raised you better than this. You don't steal from the very woman who gave birth to your husband. That money is not yours, and neither is this house." Daniel collapsed onto the couch, covering his face with both hands. His voice cracked as he muttered, "I just wanted to give you everything, but I went about it the wrong way." I softened my tone slightly, though my heart was still heavy. "Daniel, I don't need everything. I just needed respect. You took from me without asking, and then you planned a future that didn't even include me. That is what hurts the most." Silence filled the room. Then slowly, Daniel looked up at me. "You can move in, Mom. This will be your home too. I'll make it right. Please, just give me one more chance." I studied his face carefully. Was this true remorse or just fear of losing everything? I couldn't tell yet, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to be silent anymore. I replied, "I will move in, and from this day forward, I will keep control of my finances myself. No more secrets, no more betrayals. If you truly want to make it right, then prove it with your actions, not just your words." Daniel nodded slowly, tears sliding down his face. His wife looked away, ashamed, while her mother stood by me, giving me a small nod of support. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about everything. Betrayal from your own blood is the hardest pain to bear. But I also realized something important. By standing up for myself, I had regained not just my money, but my dignity. And this time, Daniel knew his mother was not someone he could ever take for granted again. The next morning, I woke up early. The house was quiet, but I could feel the tension hanging in the air. Daniel avoided looking at me, while his wife's face was tight with anger. Only her mother greeted me politely, offering me a cup of tea. As I sipped it, I noticed whispers coming from the living room. Daniel and his wife were arguing. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but their voices were loud enough. "You can't let her stay here, Daniel. This was supposed to be our home, our fresh start. If she stays, she'll control everything. Daniel's reply was broken, tired. What do you want me to do? It's her money. If she takes this to court, we'll lose everything. His wife snapped back. Then convince her to take some money back and leave us alone. My hands tightened around the teacup. So this was their plan now? Not to accept me, but to somehow push me out again? I walked into the room, my voice steady. I heard every word. They both froze. Daniel's wife turned red, but Daniel just looked defeated. I continued, "You think you can throw me away after using my money? Let me tell you something. I'm not leaving. This house is mine as much as yours. And if you ever try to scheme against me again, I will make sure the law teaches you both a lesson." His wife opened her mouth to argue, but her mother stepped forward and said sharply, "Enough, Lisa. Stop this nonsense. You're behaving like a spoiled child. Mrs. Margaret has every right to stay here, and if you continue this behavior, don't expect me to support you." The shock on Lisa's face was priceless. She wasn't expecting her own mother to side with me again. For the first time, I saw Daniel look at his wife with disappointment. "Lisa, this is my mother. If you can't respect her, then maybe you don't respect me either." The room fell silent. I quietly turned away and went upstairs, but inside, I felt something shifting. Maybe Daniel was beginning to realize the depth of his betrayal, or maybe this was just the beginning of a much bigger storm. That night, as I lay awake, I started to think, if Daniel could betray me once, could I really trust him again? Maybe it was time to take control not just of my money, but my entire future. And so, I made a decision. Tomorrow, I would call Attorney Williams again, not just to discuss the house, but to set up something that would make sure no one could ever use me again. The next morning, I dressed neatly and went to meet Attorney Williams at his office. He was an older man, wise and calm, the kind of lawyer who had seen families tear themselves apart over money. He greeted me warmly. "Mrs. Margaret, I was expecting your call. I assume this is about securing your future." I nodded. "Yes, I don't want to depend on anyone anymore, not even Daniel. I need to make sure my savings, my pension, and any property tied to my name remain under my control." The lawyer adjusted his glasses. "That's a wise decision. We can set up a living trust in your name. That way, no one, not even your son, can touch your assets without your permission. And if anything happens to you, the property and funds will go exactly where you want them to go, not into someone else's hands." I thought carefully, then asked, "And if I decide that Daniel is not responsible enough, can I exclude him?" The lawyer gave me a sympathetic look. "Yes, you have full power to decide, but sometimes it's better to set strict conditions rather than cutting someone off completely. That way, he learns responsibility but doesn't feel completely abandoned." His words stayed in my mind. I didn't want to destroy my son, but I also couldn't let him use me again. As I left the lawyer's office, I felt a new sense of strength. For the first time, I was taking control of my life, not as Daniel's mother, not as a widow, but as a woman who deserved respect. When I returned home, Daniel was waiting. He looked nervous. "Mom, where did you go?" I looked him straight in the eyes. "To see my lawyer." He flinched, guilt flashing across his face. "Mom, please, I told you, I'll fix everything." I raised my hand to silence him. "Daniel, I'm not here to argue. I'm here to tell you something important. From now on, my money, my savings, my future, they are mine alone. You will not have access to a single dollar without my permission." His wife Lisa came down the stairs just in time to hear that. Her face darkened. "So what? You don't trust us?" I turned toward her, my voice sharp. No, I don't trust you. You proved that when you tried to push me out of my own house. Trust has to be earned, and right now, you have earned nothing. Her eyes burned with anger, but she didn't dare speak further. Daniel, however, lowered his head in shame. That evening, I sat by the window thinking about what lay ahead. I had taken one step forward, but deep inside, I knew Lisa wasn't done. Her pride, her greed, they wouldn't let her stay quiet for long. And I was right. Later that night, I overheard Lisa whispering on the phone. "Don't worry, Mom. If we can't get the money one way, we'll find another. Margaret won't be in control forever." My blood ran cold. The battle wasn't over. In fact, it had just begun. Over the next few days, the atmosphere in the house grew heavier. Daniel tried to be polite, but Lisa's eyes were always cold whenever they met mine. I could feel her resentment boiling beneath the surface. One afternoon, as I returned from the grocery store, I noticed something odd. My bedroom door was slightly open, though I was sure I had locked it. I stepped inside and froze. My drawers had been rummaged through. Important papers, my bank documents, and even my checkbook were lying scattered across the table. Lisa appeared at the doorway with a fake smile. "Oh, Margaret, I was just cleaning your room. You left the door open." I narrowed my eyes. Did I? Or were you searching for something that wasn't yours? Her smile vanished. "Don't accuse me without proof." I didn't argue. Instead, I calmly picked up my phone and snapped a picture of the mess. Then I said coldly, "Next time you enter my room without my permission, I'll call the police. Do you understand?" Her face turned red with anger, but she didn't reply. She stormed off, muttering under her breath. That night, I overheard her arguing with Daniel again. "She's turning this house into a prison. She doesn't trust us. You're her son, Daniel. You should be in control, not her." Daniel sighed. "Lisa, stop. It's her money. I made a mistake, and now we just have to live with it." But Lisa wasn't finished. "No, if she keeps everything locked away, we'll never have a future. Don't you see? She's manipulating you. She's making you choose between her and me." Her words cut me deeply. I never wanted Daniel to feel he had to choose, but maybe Lisa wanted exactly that. The next day, things escalated. A police officer showed up at the door. Daniel and I were shocked. The officer turned to me and said, "Mrs. Margaret, we received a complaint that you threatened your daughter-in-law." I stood there stunned. "What? That's a lie!" Lisa stood behind the officer, fake tears streaming down her face. "She hates me, officer. She told me she would ruin my life if I didn't obey her." Daniel looked horrified. "Lisa, what are you doing?" The officer studied me carefully. "We will need to investigate. If this is a domestic dispute, it could go to court." My heart pounded. Lisa wasn't just greedy. She was dangerous. She was trying to use the law against me. But what she didn't know was that I had already taken precautions. Slowly, I pulled out my phone. "Officer, I'd like to show you something." On the screen was the photo I had taken of my ransacked room. Then I opened a recording app. It contained Lisa's voice from the night before when she screamed that I was turning the house into a prison. The officer's expression hardened. He turned toward Lisa. "Ma'am, false reporting is a serious offense. If you're lying, you could face charges yourself." Lisa's face went white. She stammered, I didn't mean." Daniel stared at her, betrayal written all over his face. For the first time, he saw his wife's true colors. And I knew this was only the beginning of her downfall.
After the police officer left, the house was silent. Daniel sat at the edge of the couch, his head in his hands, unable to believe what just happened. Lisa stood frozen, her face pale, realizing her plan had backfired. I walked to the center of the room and said calmly, "Lisa, you tried to use the law against me. You wanted to paint me as the villain. But let me remind you, I am not weak. If you try this again, you won't just lose this house, you might lose your freedom." Lisa clenched her fists. Her eyes burned with hatred, but she didn't respond. Instead, she turned and ran upstairs, slamming the door behind her. Daniel looked at me, guilt covering his face. "Mom, I don't know what to say. I should have protected you. I should have seen this coming." I sighed. "Daniel, you're my son, but you need to open your eyes. The woman you married is not standing by you. She's dragging you down." That night, Lisa locked herself in the bedroom, but I knew she wasn't giving up, and I was right. The next morning, I overheard her on the phone again. This time, her voice was desperate. "Mom, listen to me. Margaret is turning Daniel against me. If this goes on, I'll lose everything. We need to do something. We need to make her look unstable, maybe even unfit to live with us. That way, we can send her away legally." I froze. My chest tightened with anger, but I stayed silent, listening carefully. Her mother's voice replied, low but firm. "Lisa, stop this. I warned you before. Mrs. Margaret is not your enemy. Your greed is. If you don't change, you'll ruin your marriage." Lisa shouted back, "No, you don't understand. If Margaret stays, there's no future for me. I'll find another way, with or without your help." I stepped away quietly, my heart pounding. She wasn't finished. She was plotting again. That evening, Daniel came to my room. His eyes were tired, his voice heavy. "Mom, Lisa says you hate her. She says you want to destroy our marriage. Is that true?" I looked at him deeply. "Daniel, I don't hate her, but I hate what she's doing to you and to me. She's lying, manipulating, and scheming. Open your eyes, my son. If she truly loved you, she wouldn't try to destroy your own mother." For the first time, Daniel didn't defend her. He just sat quietly, lost in thought. Later that night, I heard Lisa crying behind the bedroom door, but I knew those weren't tears of guilt. They were tears of frustration, because her plan was crumbling, and she knew it. Still, I couldn't shake one thought from my mind. If Lisa was desperate enough to lie to the police, what would she try next?
Days passed, but the tension only grew stronger. Lisa barely spoke to me, yet I could feel her watching my every move. Her silence was not peace, it was plotting. One evening, as I returned from a short walk, I noticed Daniel pacing nervously in the living room. When he saw me, he looked conflicted. "Mom," he said slowly, "Lisa showed me something. Something about you." My chest tightened. "What did she show you?" He hesitated, then handed me his phone. On the screen was a photo, a blurry picture of me holding a piece of paper with what looked like financial documents. But the text on the photo was altered, as if I had signed away my savings to myself illegally. "Lisa says this proves you've been hiding money, that you forged some of the documents to cut me out. She says if this comes out, you could be charged with fraud." I stared at the photo, my hands trembling, not from guilt, but from anger. It was fake. Lisa had created this, just like she had created her lies before. I looked Daniel straight in the eyes. "My son, do you really believe this? Do you believe I would risk everything I worked for just to cheat you?" Daniel's lips trembled. I don't know what to believe anymore." Just then, Lisa walked in, her arms crossed, her face smug. "See, Daniel, she's not as innocent as she pretends. She's playing the victim. But the truth is, she's selfish. She doesn't care about your future, only her own." I felt a surge of fury, but I kept my voice steady. "Daniel, listen carefully. That photo is fake, and I can prove it." I pulled out my own phone and opened the folder where I kept scanned copies of my original documents. I showed Daniel the same paper Lisa had altered, only this time in its true, untouched form. He compared them, his face changing from doubt to shock. "Lisa, this is fake. You edited it." Lisa's eyes widened. No! Daniel, she's tricking you. But Daniel cut her off, his voice filled with anger. Enough. First you lied to the police, and now you're forging documents? How far are you willing to go, Lisa? Her face turned red with desperation. I did it for us, Daniel, for our future. Can't you see? She's controlling everything. If we don't fight back, we'll have nothing. Daniel looked at her with disgust. No, Lisa, you're not fighting for us. You're fighting for yourself. For the first time, Lisa's mask cracked. She stood there trembling, realizing Daniel was slipping away from her. I placed a hand on my son's shoulder and said quietly, now you see the truth. She doesn't love you, Daniel. She loves what she can take from you. Tears filled Daniel's eyes. He didn't answer, but I knew his heart was breaking. And Lisa? Her silence was more dangerous than her shouting, because a woman like her, when cornered, becomes unpredictable. I braced myself. The worst was yet to come.
The following morning, the house was quiet, but the tension was thicker than ever. Lisa barely spoke, and when she did, it was sharp and pointed. Daniel tried to maintain peace, but his exhaustion was visible, the weight of realizing the truth about his wife pressing down on him. I decided to act carefully. I couldn't just confront Lisa again. I needed to secure my position without giving her another chance to manipulate the situation. I called Attorney Williams. Mr. Williams, I said calmly, I want to add one more layer of protection. I want all my finances, my property, and any new investments under a trust that even my son cannot touch without my direct consent. He nodded. A living trust with strict provisions will ensure that no one can exploit you again. This is the safest way forward, Margaret. After the call, I went into the living room where Daniel was sitting silently. I crouched beside him. Son, you need to understand something. Your wife is not just greedy, she is manipulative. If we don't act carefully, she will try to turn this house and even you against me. Daniel swallowed hard. Mom, I understand now. I didn't see it before. I thought she loved me. I thought she respected you. I gave him a firm nod. Sometimes love is disguised as control, but we won't let that happen here. I will live here, and no one will take what I've earned. Lisa walked past us, trying to appear nonchalant, but I could see her eyes tracking every move I made. She spoke softly, as if to herself. This isn't over. She won't win. Not completely. I didn't respond. Instead, I focused on planning the next steps. I reviewed my documents, double-checked the security on all accounts, and ensured that every piece of evidence of ownership was airtight. I couldn't rely on trust anymore, only on facts, proof, and law. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Daniel came to me quietly. Mom, I'm sorry. I never should have let it get this far. I should have seen her true nature earlier. I placed a hand on his shoulder. It's not too late to do the right thing, Daniel. You have to learn responsibility, honesty, and respect. You still have a chance to fix your own life and our relationship, but only if you act wisely. We sat in silence for a moment. The house was quiet, but the storm was far from over. I knew Lisa would not give up easily, and I knew that if she tried another move, I would be ready, stronger, wiser, and prepared. Because one thing was clear, I was no longer the mother who would forgive without question. I was Margaret, a woman who had worked, fought, and earned every inch of her life, and no one, not even her own family, would take that away from her again. The next few days passed in uneasy silence. Lisa avoided me in the house, but I could feel her eyes on me constantly. Every time I moved, every time I spoke to Daniel, she seemed to be calculating, waiting for a moment to strike. I knew I couldn't just sit and wait. I began documenting everything, every conversation, every suspicious action. I even installed security cameras in common areas, not to spy, but to protect myself from further false accusations. Knowledge, I realized, was my strongest shield.
One afternoon, Daniel came into my study, looking anxious. "Mom, Lisa is planning something," he whispered. "She called her lawyer today. I don't know what she said, but she's definitely trying to challenge your rights to the house." I nodded slowly. I expected nothing less. This is why we have to be proactive, Daniel. I want you to be honest with me from now on. If she tries anything, I need to know immediately. Daniel hesitated, then said, I will, Mom, I promise. I don't want to lose you or the house either." That evening, I overheard Lisa muttering on the phone again, her voice trembling with anger. "I don't care how she did it. I need to find a way to get control back. That house, it should be ours, not hers." I smiled faintly. She still didn't understand. I had learned her patterns, her lies, her schemes. Every move she made only made it easier for me to anticipate her next step. The next morning, I invited Daniel to sit with me at the dining table. "Son," I said, "it's time for you to understand something important. Money and property are not the ultimate goal. Respect, honesty, and trust are. If you want a future with your wife, it can only exist if it is built on truth, not lies." He nodded slowly, a mixture of shame and relief on his face. "I get it now, Mom. I can't let her control me anymore, or let her manipulate us again." I looked out the window, thinking, Lisa would not give up easily, but I had prepared, I had secured my assets, and now I had Daniel's attention, the key to keeping the house, my money, and my dignity intact. That night, as I went to bed, I felt a sense of cautious victory. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, I knew I had the upper hand. No more lies, no more manipulations. The house, my life, and my respect, I would protect them, come what may. The following days, Lisa grew increasingly frustrated. She tried to argue with Daniel, trying to convince him that his mother was overreacting. But Daniel's newfound awareness made her tactics ineffective. One afternoon, Lisa approached me aggressively. "Margaret, you think you've won? You're just controlling everything. You can't stop me forever." I remained calm, holding her gaze. "Lisa, I don't need to stop you. Your actions speak for themselves. The truth is clear, and Daniel can see it now. If you continue your lies and schemes, the law will handle it. You've already lost the moral battle." She stepped back, shocked that I wasn't reacting with fear or anger. "You think this is over? I'll find a way." I smiled faintly. "Go ahead, but remember, I'm no longer the woman you can manipulate. This house, my money, my life, I control it now." Daniel, standing nearby, finally spoke up. "Lisa, stop. You've gone too far. Mom isn't the enemy. You've only been deceiving yourself." Her face flushed with anger and humiliation. She tried to argue, but Daniel's resolve was firm. "I'm done being manipulated. This ends now." That night, I reviewed every legal document, every bank statement, every contract. I knew Lisa might attempt one last move, but I had already secured all protection measures. The house was legally mine, the money untouchable, and Daniel aware of the truth. As I lay in bed, I realized something important. This was never just about money or property. It was about respect, honesty, and boundaries, and I had taken them back step by step. The next morning, Lisa packed her things. She had tried every scheme, every lie, every manipulation, but the walls of truth had closed in. Daniel helped her leave, and I stayed in the living room, feeling a sense of relief I hadn't felt in years. Daniel approached me quietly. "Mom, thank you. I see everything now. I was blind before, but you showed me the truth." I smiled softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Son, I didn't just show you the truth. I showed you boundaries. You must protect yourself, respect others, and never allow manipulation to rule your life." He nodded, tears in his eyes.
I will, Mom. I promise. I'll never take you for granted again. The house was quiet, peaceful, and safe. For the first time in years, I felt in control, not just of my finances, but of my life. I had faced betrayal, lies, and manipulation from the people closest to me, but through patience, calmness, and knowledge, I had won back my dignity. That evening, as I stood by the window watching the sunset, I reflected on everything I had endured. I realized something vital. Life doesn't always give you respect or fairness. Sometimes you have to fight for it. And when you do, you don't just protect your wealth, you protect your soul. I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, I am Margaret. I am strong, and no one will ever take that away from me again. The storm had passed, and a new chapter had begun, one built on truth, boundaries, and self-respect.